This splashdown makes space history, but the journey is far from over. Space expert Zach Aubert is live with us now. Zach, we all just watched the splashdown happen, right? Very exciting, even for someone not being a space expert, but you are. So what's going through your mind right now?
It's great to see just how smoothly today went. We know Dragon is autonomous. We've seen its success before. Having a daytime return isn't something we've seen all too many times. So the views today have definitely been unbeatable and a great way to kind of document the end of Butch and Sunny's very extended stay mission. But I'm sure they're glad to be home, and there's still a bit more until they get to see their friends and family.
Yeah, we heard about that. So walk us through what we just saw for the past couple of minutes here on the NASA feed.
Absolutely. So while they were still kind of free falling through, we first saw the drogue chutes deploy. Those are those two smaller chutes. That was followed by the main chutes. These are the bigger ones that slow them down to a point that they're going to have that really soft landing on the surface of the ocean. Today's weather looked like it was absolutely perfect. Very little waves, so a very nice landing. We saw the Dragon bobbing around a little bit. That's normal. The astronauts will stay suited up and strapped into their capsule until they're recovered. So now we see the fast boats that have approached. They're going to be checking for any hazmats or hypergolics that are in the area before bringing in the bigger recovery ship, which is actually what will attach to the Dragon capsule Freedom, hoist it up onto it. They'll transition the capsule after a little bit of time to the side, where they actually have a platform right up to that main hatch, which hasn't been opened in 6 months. And then we'll get to see these astronauts actually officially be welcomed home by people that haven't only been in space.
Yeah, so we've been talking about this all day, about how exciting this must be for the people coming back to Earth. They get to see their family, their friends, their colleagues, but there are some things that have to happen before all of that happens. So what are the next steps for the astronauts?
Yeah, once they're on the recovery ship, they'll normally be taken out of the capsule on stretchers. Sometimes they still might think they have the ability to walk, but after a long duration mission like this, safety is always priority one. And that's where the effects of being in microgravity and living in space takes a while to recover from. Initially, you're going to have just some balance issues and readjusting to it. In the shorter term, you're going to be kind of relearning how to walk, learn how to do some basic movements. We also see astronauts when they come back generally have a little bit of a puffier face, and that's from the body fluids being in zero gravity. So we see that over the first week or two start to normalize. And then you go into the longer term recovery, where you're into weeks and months of bone density recovery, cardiovascular system. The heart didn't have to pump the same way it does on Earth when it's in microgravity. And then you go into the long-term studies of neurological and body systems on how microgravity affects us living in space.
Zach, quick question. Do you have the live feed up right now? Are you watching it?
I do.
You see it? Can you tell us what this is that we're looking at right here?
Yeah, so we're looking at the recovery ship here, and at the end of your screen, right before the water, that's where they would call it the nest. That is where they will actually hoist Dragon out of the water via a crane. It'll land on that kind of black circular pad area. That is where it'll be stabilized, and once they're secure there, it'll slide forward towards that platform where we saw some of the kind of SpaceX ninjas, as we all call them, waiting to open up that hatch and welcome the crew home. The views today are unbeatable.
And Zach, how long do you think it'll take this process until they're onto dry land, coming from the capsule, getting moved out onto dry land? How long is that process typically?
It's generally pretty quick, a few hours. Once they're out of the capsule, they'll be taken for a private medical examination on the ship. And once all four of them are clear, they'll actually have a helicopter pad on top of the recovery ship. They'll land a helicopter and fly them back to the mainland, and then they'll go for another evaluation and then go from there, but generally a few hours.
Now, with all the evaluations you speak of, how long do you think it typically takes for astronauts to reacclimate back to Earth? Because again, 9 months is a long time. These two astronauts were only planning to be there for a couple of days. So how long is that process for them to kind of reacclimate back to life here on Earth?
I mean, some recovery can take up to years. Some of the outcomes of living in space might never go away. We've heard of astronauts having improved or worsened vision changes or cardiovascular. So that's ultimately one of the biggest experiments of living and working at the ISS is how does it affect the human body? And we need to learn that here. So when we go to the moon and Mars, we have an idea on how to make sure we stay safe. So the biggest things that are barriers to kind of daily life they reset pretty quickly, days to the first couple of weeks. But the longer term stuff, that's something we'll study for the rest of these astronauts' lives.
Tell me this, Zach. Is there anything out there that you think people would be surprised to know that, the average person like myself doesn't quite know or we haven't learned about when it comes to a mission like this? What will we be surprised to know?
I think SpaceX makes it look really easy when you're watching these streams. It's like, oh, you deploy some parachutes, you splash, and you pick it up with a crane. There is thousands of people working on this, making sure between SpaceX and NASA this is operated correctly, securing the area for splashdown. The amount of work that goes into making this look so easy is a lot. And I think that's why when we look to other launch providers, a lot of people are like, well, look, SpaceX does it. Why can't others do it? It's a lot harder than it looks. And SpaceX is the best in the game at doing it for crew missions.
And Zach, can you fill us in on the reacclimation back to gravity? Can we get an idea of what our body actually feels like? I can imagine it is completely different than what you're used to once you've been up in space for 9 months.
Yeah, just like launch, when you're launching on a Falcon 9, you actually experience a multiple of normal gravity before you experience zero gravity. And they'll have that while they're coming back to Earth as well. The biggest way of thinking of it is almost have someone sit on you. Have that feeling of pressure pushing you down. But for these astronauts, they haven't felt that type of pressure of normal. Think about even when you're just sitting, if you hold your hands up and then just think of relaxing. For them, they've been used that their hands would just sit there with no effort. But now that's going to hit to the ground, and it's that readjustment to your muscular structure to relearn that. It's actually something that if you've ever been bedridden or hospitalized and that type of thing where you haven't been allowed out of bed, it's very quick that our muscles reset and become weakened, just a few days. So for 6 months plus, it's going to take them a little bit to earn all that muscle back and be back to normal.
I can't even imagine, Zach. I mean, I guess the closest thing I can think of personally is childbirth, and you're talking about a matter of hours before you're reacclimated back to, jumping back into the swing of things. So you spoke about the anatomy of the body, but when it comes to the psychological, we spoke with a captain a short time ago, and he was telling us that there are psychologists and psychiatrists that NASA has who are ready to speak with Butch and Sunny. Do you have any idea? Can you give us some insight into what these conversations will be about, how long they'll go?
Those will ultimately probably go for years to come. I mean, the impact of seeing our planet and having that overview effect, it's always something that changes your perspective and your mindset. Butch and Sunny have been up there before, so this isn't necessarily new to them. They've kind of gone through this process before. But even talking to other astronauts that have done multiple shuttle missions or Soyuz missions, that awe of seeing our planet is still there. There's obviously going to be the impacts of, they plan to be away for 8 to 10 days. They knew that could be extended. Did they think it was going to end up being this long of a mission? Probably not. So the impacts of, missing the activities and events with their family and friends is definitely something they'll process, but they've been doing that the whole time they've been on station. With latest technology, these astronauts are in constant communications. We actually heard it earlier today on the ComNets. They had those private medical sessions that they took the comms private. So they've got medical teams working with them from the moment of launch to years after landing. So they'll work through it, and they know what they were roughly getting into, even if it took longer to get home.
You're right. That's always something that we have to remember. Listen, we've been speaking with space expert Zach Aubert here. Beautiful insight, Zach. Thank you so much for joining us. We certainly appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Welcome home, Butch and Sunny and Crew 9.
Yes, and I know you'll be watching along with us. We want to listen in right now. Crews are surrounding the capsule, and they are looking possibly opening the hatch in just a short time. Let's go ahead and listen back into the live feed.
The nest will be translated to the forward end of the recovery vessel, and that is where our Crew 9 team members will egress from the Dragon spacecraft. Now, here